You want a chaos in the college football playoff? Welcome to chaos in the SEC. Final score 23-21 Oklahoma. And Alabama's playoff hopes nowhere near set in stone. Oklahoma's playoff hopes pretty alive and well. Let's break it all down. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered postgame show. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel because we're going to be talking a lot about Alabama. We're going to be talking a lot about Oklahoma. What is the pathway for both of these squads moving forward to get into the playoffs? What do we think of both these teams at this point? Like, review, hit subscribe, follow us on the social channels at SEC Unfiltered. Check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And make sure that you also are you're following us over at FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started today with $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Sign up today at FANDUEL.com/SECU to join in on the action. Oklahoma won this football game fair and square. There's nothing to sugarcoat about it. Oklahoma was more dominant defensively. Oklahoma got more critical stops. They allowed explosive plays, but ultimately, when it came down to the nuts and bolts of this thing, everything went in favor of Oklahoma, and they forced the narrative to be that way. I am not going to be one of those people who has to look back in the mirror and say, well, because of my pick was wrong, that means that everything went wrong for the other team. No, that's not me. Oklahoma had a damn good game plan. They came out, they executed, they had far fewer mistakes, and ultimately that decided the game. But when you look at this team, and when you look at this Oklahoma roster, this game went almost as perfectly as I planned. I gave a final score of 24-20, but I had Alabama winning, and it was 23-21. Regardless, we're not going down that pathway. What I'm here to talk about is when you look at Oklahoma, Oklahoma won in the non-negotiables of this game. Oklahoma won on special teams, and Oklahoma won on turnovers. And ultimately, you have got to be able to win at the finite little details that goes such a long way to go ahead and guarantee a win, especially one like this where your backs are against the wall and you realize if you find a way to lose, you're done with the college football playoff. There's no chance of you being this 9-3 team that sneaks on in because there's going to be too many 10-2 teams. There's going to be too many teams with better resumes in the eyes of the committee. You're going to drop too far down. That's what Oklahoma needed to accomplish. That's what Oklahoma did. And Alabama didn't. So we start off with winners on this show. Oklahoma came out swinging defensively. I said in the preview, and all of you who are going to say, well, you didn't pick us to win. Very fair. I did not pick you to win. I said in the preview, this was going to be Alabama's biggest test of the rest of the season, including the college football playoff, if they're lucky enough to make it there. Because I knew that Oklahoma was going to have a defensive game plan after preparing for 2 weeks to rattle Ty Simpson and put him in a position where you were going to have to make it a gotta-give-it moment, and it could end up not delivering. And they did. And they set the tone from the very get-go. A very early 3-and-out, and then an Eli Bowen 87-yard pick six to the house. That was what you need to see. And that was what we got from a team that needed to make sure that when they were going into the belly of the beast, they were going to set the tone. Offensively, wasn't much to write home about, but they made plays when they had to. Whether it was just a quick little strike on out to the outside to Xavier Robinson or a good time run from John Mateer, they were able to guarantee that they consistently kept balls moving in the right direction. Mateer had that big strike where he got into the end zone. Didn't really get much from Xavier Robinson or Torrey Blaylock, but you know what? It was enough to be able to say there weren't negative yards coming your way. It was only positive yards. But again, Oklahoma made the far few major errors, which ultimately is what decides this game. Alabama had a pick. Alabama had a fumble. Alabama had a fumble on a punt return. Those little details really will tell you the story of the game because look at what happened in all three of those drives. One led to a score. The other one led to a touchdown. And the other one, well, at that point, the game was already out of reach, so it didn't really matter. But still, offensively, you just need to get the job done enough to be able to play keep away from Alabama and put them in a position to where they had to strike. And in the second half, Oklahoma really didn't do anything fancy. Oklahoma really didn't do anything that was promising. But you know what they did do? They were able to keep enough away from from Alabama's offense to where the defense had enough time to be able to breathe, get back on the field, and make plays. If you love defensive football, this was a game for you because neither side really were making big-time plays offensively. Ty Simpson threw for over 390 yards, but still, you can talk about the explosive plays given on up. They still couldn't capitalize. Guess what happened? Oklahoma did. Oklahoma relied on the dink and dunk plays, and they were able to go ahead and kind of set the tone when it came to just moving the sticks properly, get into field goal range for Tate Sandell, who had 3 field goals, much like he did against Tennessee. In fact, when you look at this matchup overall, it reminds you a lot of the Tennessee game in multiple ways because you were outgained, you were out third down conversions, you were worse on fourth down, but it didn't matter because of the careless mistakes that were imposed, self-inflicted by Alabama. You took and you ran to the house with. And that's what I think makes Oklahoma dangerous, is that they don't have the self-inflicting wounds. The thing about Oklahoma was, and my big concern going into this game was, what if you put the ball in John Mateer's hands and he has got to be able to win this outright? He has got to be the guy that shows on up and just delivers strike after strike after strike. I think that favors Alabama. But if you allow John Mateer to do little things like, hey, let's just move the football in a timely manner and then trust our kicker, who has been elite all season and is probably going to be an All-American, just go ahead and hit a chip shot from 50 yards, we'll be good. And that really was the game plan. Alabama was better on third down. Alabama was better on fourth down. Alabama had 406 yards compared to Oklahoma's 212. Alabama outgained them through the air 326 to 138. They outgained them on the ground 80 to 74. They had fewer penalties. They lost in 2 major categories: special teams and turnovers. And those are just little details that will carry you such a long way. And it was something that didn't happen for Brent Venables, who, by the way, at this point, guaranteed he's back next year. There's no scenario, and I didn't think that there was after beating Tennessee, but there's no scenario where it feels like Oklahoma is not going to look at Brent Venables and say, how can you build off of this? It's a massive win. You went into the house of Nick Saban and Bear Bryant. You got a convincing victory, and you keep your college football playoff hopes alive with 2 games left, both of which are very winnable. LSU did not look great today offensively whatsoever with Michael Van Buren. That's winning your backyard. And Missouri, we have no idea what they're going to be because they have yet to play against Mississippi State. So let's just say they look dreadful tonight. Are we sure that you're not going to win that game? You win both, you're 10-2, you're in the college football playoff. That was a convincing win by Oklahoma's defense that once again showed you when it's on point, it can be the best in the nation. Front 7 absolutely can. They got after all the time Ty Simpson. They were able to put pressure. They took away the rushing attack, which again has been non-existent all year for the Crimson Tide. It hasn't been there outside of 2 games. Like, I had somebody text me not too long ago and say, well, Alabama, you're talking too negatively about their running game because if they haven't shown up in 2 games. What are you talking about? They showed up against Georgia. They showed up against Van. Those are the outliers. Like, that's where we're at. Everything else has been 115 in the rushing attack, 3.2 yards a play. And they made sure they said, listen, Ty, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us through the air. And he did, except in 2 of the most critical spots: turnovers and fourth down conversions in critical drives. And if those things didn't happen, then it would have been the case. And even still, they were able to make enough of points. And then Connor Talty misses a field goal. It genuinely, you know what? We're going to wait till we get to the Alabama segment. We're still going to talk about Oklahoma. I will talk about that in a second. Oklahoma was able to capitalize on Alabama's mistakes, number 1, but they were also able to force Alabama into making mistakes at ill-advised times. And I'm not talking about penalties, and I'm not talking about, red zone efficiencies or being able to go ahead and get a big-time turnover. I'm talking about the fact that they were able to force them into throwing on rush passes. That was it. Like, quite literally. Ty Simpson on multiple third downs could have easily tried to connect with an Isaiah Horton or a Josh Cuevas or a Ryan Williams, and OU got in the backfield without their star pass rusher and R. Mason Thomas and still made plays. And ultimately, those little details went such a long way into getting enough of a lead and trusting that you were going to be able to pull this thing on out. Again, Oklahoma's defense is elite. I've said it all year. I think it is the best defense in the SEC, and it showed on up in a gotta-have moment tonight. And you can't take that away from Oklahoma. Yeah, you can say that Oklahoma's offense was pedestrian. It's been pedestrian most of the season. But when your defense needed to get a big-time stop without your key pass rusher, it delivered. It did. And this is why, again, when you are a coach that is knowing your job is on the line, sometimes it's best to trust your own intuition. Not enough people are talking about what Brent Venables did this offseason, trusting his play calling and saying they were going to go out in style with him. That was it. And lo and behold, defensively, you showed on up. And now you're 2 games away from going to the college football playoff. Now for Alabama, let's talk about you for a second. Alabama is going to still be in the college football playoff should they win against Auburn. They will win next week against Eastern Illinois, and then they will face off against Auburn on the road. Here's the problem. If you are an Alabama fan, then you do not want to worry about having to play against Auburn on the road. That's just it. You just don't want to, because if it's, again, Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl. That's it. Nobody wants to worry about going into Jordan-Hare and having to play that type of game. Nobody. Because of why would you? It's a house of horrors for the Crimson Tide. And this is a way to guarantee that even if you are to lose a game in conference play, you're still going to be in the playoff. You're still going to be going to Atlanta. You're still going to be making a run toward the national championship. And ultimately, that wasn't the case. And honestly, Alabama had some very crappy drives. They did. I'm not going to sit here and act like they did. I'm an Alabama grad. I'll be the very first to say they did not look like Alabama of old. But this has been boiling on over. If you're an Alabama fan, go ahead and argue with me all you want. But bottom line is that this has been brewing for 3 weeks. Ty Simpson did not look elite at all against South Carolina. He did not look great last week. He had 3 throws that easily would have gone for touchdowns that were just outside of the reach of multiple wide receivers. That, again, if you do that, you beat LSU by what? 25? 26? And it all came crashing down against an elite defense where your offense was starting to lose a little bit of its gusto. You can't run the football. That's been something that you have not been able to do all season long. You have been decent on third down, but when you rush throws and Ty Simpson's under duress, you can see that he doesn't go through his progression, and it leads to ill-advised passes. And that was what Oklahoma was able to accomplish tonight. They were. The fumble recovery is easily one that could absolutely say that turned the game, but still, you were able to do just enough to guarantee that you kept this thing interesting. The interception by Eli Bowen, yeah, it's one bad play, but the problem is that you constantly were under duress and you rushed your throws. And this is where Alabama now has to look in the mirror and say, what did we do wrong? Number one, your offensive line was nowhere near up to par than what it should be. Usually we have seen Alabama's offensive line look at least promising. They've made plays. They put themselves in a position where Ty Simpson had time to throw. There were about 8 throws tonight where it felt like, yep, clean pocket, able to deliver, and 1 or 2 throws, he rushed. He absolutely rushed. But then there were times to where you could easily see, hey, listen, they're sending delayed blitzes. They're coming up the middle and they're making plays on you. Whether it be a Kobe McKenzie, whether it be a Reggie Powers, whether it be a Kip Lewis, they got after you. And the numbers don't lie. 16 pressures, 5 tackles for losses, 4 sacks. I mean, you can say what you want, but that's what the game did. They dismantled the offensive line, put Ty Simpson in a position where he had to make throws on ill-advised times. Receivers weren't finishing their routes, and ultimately it led to 3 and outs. It led to punts. The bad punt return by Ryan Williams ultimately led to a scoring drive. John Mateer found his way into the end zone because they had a short field advantage, and they made usage of it. The interception by Eli Bowen, they made usage of it. What you look at is little things like that is Alabama finding ways to shoot themselves in the foot and Oklahoma capitalizing. That was just it. And Alabama doesn't have to worry about that because if they don't do that against Auburn and they don't do that against Eastern Illinois, they're in the playoff. That's the beauty of where you have this team. That's it, is that Alabama did enough from that week 1 loss to give themselves a little bit of equity to lose a game like this and not be out of the college football playoff. And Oklahoma did not have margin for error. If Oklahoma loses tonight, they're going home. Yeah, they can finish the season off by mollywopping Mizzou and beating the crap out of LSU. But 9-3 with their schedule, with losses to Alabama, losses to Texas, and losses to Ole Miss, 3 teams that are in the college football playoff, a lot of chaos would have to assume. And that won't be the case anymore. So Alabama, listen, you can say to yourself, yeah, people want to talk negatively about them and that they had a bad game. They did. They had a terrible game plan, and yet they only lost by 2. They can still find their way to the playoff. The problem is that now you got to look at what can they do over the next 2 games to right the ship, make sure the offensive line is more prolific, get something going on the ground, just enough to be able to create opportunities and put them in a position where they're walking into Jordan-Hare and leaving the stadium with a win. Because I can promise you this, Alabama with a loss to Auburn and a loss to Florida State is not going to the college football playoff. They're not. It's not over, but if they lose those 2 games, it is. And it's a shame because Alabama still feels like it can win the national championship. And openly, I'll be completely real, I'm rooting for Alabama still to win the national championship because that was my preseason pick, and I felt right on the money. I knew they were going to lose an SEC game. This isn't shocking. Anybody who looks currently at Alabama should have known that eventually they would hit a wall. It came on a Saturday in their backyard after back-to-back underwhelming offensive performances, and their defense did just enough to keep them in, and ultimately they couldn't get the job done. We need to talk about Connor Talty. We need to talk about Connor Talty, because here's the thing. I can live in a world where Connor Talty is at least missing kicks. What I can't do is the nonchalant attitude. It was an easy chip shot. I mean, let's just call a spade, guys. That was a 23-yard field goal that was right in the face of people. You should have been able to tie the game. And if you tie the game, bottom line is that you would end up being up 24-23, and you would have won. But then the attitude afterwards, if you just nonchalantly no care in the world, that's not okay. And that's not okay for anybody who ever serves in Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know this, but this is the SEC, where one loss may not feel like that it's a game to where it ends up costing you, but it can. And it costs the crap out of you. That's just it. And whether you want to say, like as Blake says in the comment section, oh, you tipped the kick, doesn't matter if you tipped the kick. It's a 23-yard field goal. Unless it is a complete block to where it's coming straight down, you should drain that. And this is not the first time that Talty's missed multiple kicks this year. Cost you at times in the South Carolina game. Cost you at times last week against LSU. You can't afford to have these type of moments. And the crazy part is Alabama has had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to fix the special teams. And Will Reichard did do that. But you know what did happen? Is that outside of him, it has still been a problem on special teams, especially in the kicking game. And at some point, it just feels like that is going to become your Achilles heel. And everybody's starting to pick it on up. Since 2015 with Adam Griffith, it has been a problem. And they haven't been able to fix it entirely. Did it one time. And they're still right back to it. If it comes down to a kick right now, you are shitting bricks if you are an Alabama fan. Because you and I both understand it's going to be an issue. And we saw it clear as day tonight, and we're going to see it clear as day multiple times. But Alabama's not out of the college football playoff conversation. I can see people like Chris Aaron in the fucking comments section acting like an idiot, saying that you're not an Alabama fan. It's not the point about being an Alabama fan. What the point is that Alabama's not out of the playoff. They could easily win against Auburn, punch their ticket to the playoff, and then as soon as they do, they put themselves right back in the conversation of hosting a game, winning out, and going to a national championship. If Ohio State can lose to Michigan, you can lose to Oklahoma back-to-back years and still punch your ticket. But now you leave no margin for error. Oklahoma knew that they had no margin for error tonight. And guess what? Their defense delivered a performance to remember. That's what they did. That's exactly what they did. And that's why they are now 8 quarters away from going to a playoff. And they can. Be completely honest. If that defense is the one that shows up against Missouri, they can win. If that defense is the one that shuts down a team like LSU and their offense just gets a little bit better, they can win. They win those 2 games, they're in the playoff. And they're probably hosting a playoff game somewhere. That's the beauty of what was this win. Brent Venables held a hell of a game, put pressure on a quarterback that was fighting for a college football playoff bid, and certainly has earned his respect and flowers from the Sooner faithful to now believe that his vision is intact. John Mateer was not the storyline of this game, in my opinion. Brent Venables was. It's why you bring in a coach like him, and you can trust that when you give him the rights to call plays defensively, it ends up delivering. That was what you witnessed on Saturday night. In Bryant-Denny Stadium, a place where it's almost impossible to beat a team like the Alabama Crimson Tide, especially when you do not have your A-plus performance offensively. Let's get to your comments, questions, and get on out of here. In my opinion, Ohio State was beating. They could. It wouldn't shock me. I will say right now, if you ask me who would I bet on, Ohio State or the field, Ohio State feels like a right answer. I do want to see them get a little bit tested, see what they look like when they play from behind. It just feels like a performance to where if they do that, they can deliver. But I'm still waiting to figure out what that one is. Oklahoma forced pressures. Our defense passed the eye test. Oh, boy, that's really better. Oklahoma, best defense. OU, my self-destruction would have won by Ole Miss. Yeah, probably. I mean, they could have. Chris Aaron is losing his mind over here. They're winning out. Their season's done over. See, this is the problem with Alabama fans. And this is the problem and why I hate associating sometimes with you. Because if you act like that, the season's done because if you lost one game. Like, again, you can finish the year 7-1 in conference play. You do that, you're in the playoff. You still could easily make a run to Atlanta. Nothing is out of reach. That's what happens when you end up winning against teams like Vanderbilt and Missouri, and you beat Georgia on the road, and you beat up on Tennessee, and you find ways to don't fuck it up against South Carolina, and you kick the crap out of LSU. When you do those things, Chris, that's what ends up leading toward you making it to the run of the playoffs. But you instead want to sit here and act all miserable because of Alabama lost a football game, instead of trying to find the bright side of the situation, which is, look, it was a terrible performance, and it's one conference loss. Nothing is set in stone just yet. Jay Morgan, Alabama's offense is awful. Your defense is great. If you can't shut out offenses, you're not going far. Listen, you got to have a better performance offensively if you're Oklahoma to win a national championship. But their offense is good enough, I think, at this point to beat Missouri, beat LSU, and go to the college football playoff. They are. That's just kind of the case. You're wrong, buddy. No one picked OU. You're right. Nobody did. I didn't. Chris didn't. I don't know a single person in the media public eye outside of Oklahoma media that picked OU to win this football game. And even if I said that Oklahoma was going to make this thing close, which I did, 24-20, I didn't pick them to win. I could have easily told you that this game could have gone in favor of Oklahoma, and I knew it could have. But I didn't pick Oklahoma to win. I didn't believe it was going to happen. Guess what? It didn't. It probably won't. Bama gets by during championship week. Ohio State did the same thing last year and won it all. Again, Joe K understands it. Alabama sometimes not going to the SEC championship is a blessing in disguise. You don't get that first round bye. You get to host a playoff game at home, and you get to figure some things out and put yourself in a position to where you can win. Now, right now, Alabama's not going to be hosting a playoff game, at least in my opinion. You need more chaos to happen, whether it be Ole Miss losing tonight to Florida or in the Egg Bowl. You need Oklahoma to drop a game to somebody. You need Texas to lose some games. You would love to see Georgia also lose tonight. Little things like that will maybe help you, but you can still go play in a playoff game and run the table and go towards the national championship. That part is not going to be shocking to me whatsoever. Boomer to you, Paul. Sooners did not have R. Mason Thomas. They didn't have R. Mason Thomas. You have wanted Bama to lose, and you have a favorite, and you got to lead them. What the hell, Chris Aaron? Come on, man. You're better than this. You're probably not, but still. I'm behind, but really, really good point about OU's offense, giving their team it's enough time to breathe. That's all you needed. Like, that was the game plan. Oklahoma's defensive line got after Ty Simpson so many times, and they won their one-on-one battles. Like, go back and watch as Evan Formby and Caden Proctor are losing to the outside corner. And they're putting themselves in a position to where you just get enough pressure on Ty Simpson to deliver play after play after play, and it ends up working out in their favor. Like, that's all it is. And what makes this so sweeter, all the experts locally and nationally picked Alabama. Yeah, you do have the best defense in the SEC, Jay Morgan. I'm not going to sit here and act like you didn't. They 100% have the best defense in the SEC, and I believe that. And I believe that since really the Texas game even. Like, after what we saw going into the Auburn game, easily had the best defense. Alabama going to voodoo land. Again, that's the problem, Scott, S. Hobson. You understand this as well as I do. You did not want to put your fate of the college football playoff in the year of going to Jordan-Hare Stadium, where the voodoo shaman man's magic has not seeped through the soils to come on out this year. Like, that's the reason why you want to win this game. It had nothing to do with Alabama can't win and finish the year off 11-1. It was now you have to win, and somehow, some way, Auburn's voodoo shaman still is awaiting for this moment to arise. And that puts a little bit more pressure on there. Boomer. Yep, Boomer. SEC might get 4 or 5 teams in the playoff. Yeah, probably. I think they will get at least 4. I mean, you look at the way that the Big 10 looked today. Guys, come on. Did anybody else see that game? Like, Iowa was struggling. I mean, was barely getting by over USC, and they need a full-on comeback. Michigan struggled against Northwestern, and they only won by 2. Like, that is at best a 3-bid league. Somebody will knock each other out to where there's only 3 10-2 teams in. And then you got to wonder what's going on with the ACC. Luckily, Georgia Tech survived today. So did Virginia. They put themselves in the conversation for at least right back for a college football playoff. Things like that will go a long way, but like still, you're probably going to get at least 4. Now, the question is, do you get 5? If Oklahoma and Alabama are on the table, both in at 10-2, yeah, that's fine. If Alabama somehow doesn't run the table, then yeah, 4 probably. Vanderbilt running the table, you could get a 5th or 6th at that point. 6 feels a little bit 6 feels a little bit egregious, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Regardless, it still very much can happen. All right, we're going to end the live stream right here. We'll be back after Texas and Georgia. That game has now massive playoff implications. But before we get on out of here, let me tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/SECU is where you want to go to sign on up and win money. Win money right now. It's very simple. All you got to do is place down $5. Place down on Oklahoma winning the national title. Or how about we just go a little bit easier? Going to the college football playoff. Go look at their odds. You win that bet. In 2 weeks, when that occurs, you will be getting $300 in bonus bets. And you can use those bets on same-day parlays, cash hubs, whatever tickles your fancy in any single sport. The NBA, the NHL, college basketball is back in full swing, whether it be bowl games or the college football playoff. Now is the perfect time to sign up. Simply put, go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Don't waste any time. Get in on the action today. Sign up, FanDuel.com/SECU. Do not want to miss out. The game day is here. The only question is, are you ready to join on in? Final score, 23-21. Oklahoma dismantles in a lot of ways, but still, really, I guess you could say survives at the same time. Alabama, they keep their college football playoff hopes alive. Everything is still within reach for both teams, but it is now win or go home for the Crimson Tide and the Sooner Nation. Let's see what happens as we close out 2025. I'm Cole Thompson. I will see you after Texas, Georgia. Have a good rest of your night. Boomer Sooner, Roll Tide. Somehow, some way, we get more chaos in the world of college football. Peace.